All right. Well, anyway, welcome to His Kingdom Radio. Today, we are going to have a guest with us. His name is Pastor Rob Shepherd. He is the pastor of New Level Church out of Yorktown, Virginia, and he also is an author. So he's written 4 books, but today we're going to talk about one in particular, which is called When Offense Knocks, Get Offended Less to Change the World More. And in a world of offense, we need to hear about that. So I'm so glad that you were willing to come on His Kingdom Radio and share a little bit about your life.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
And I like to always start out with, how did you come to know the Lord? And give us a little bit of background there, and then what made you want to be in the ministry
Yeah,
as well. If you could just kind of begin with that, that would be awesome.
yeah, for sure. Well, I grew up in a Christian home, and both my parents were believers and went to church every Sunday because I didn't know I had a choice. I didn't know you could skip church. We were just there all the time.
Yeah.
And started going and did public school through middle school. The middle school started going to a Christian school. And I would say that I was just a good kid that grew up in a Christian home. I wasn't anti-God, but I also wasn't the one that was like, super into Jesus stuff. I didn't have a problem with it, but I wasn't also like just the big, it was just like, it's just a part of our life. It's just something we do. But in around 8th grade, I started going to a youth group, and a youth pastor really started investing in my life and started encouraging me to go like to summer camp and come to the youth group. And his teaching was the first time that the Bible really came to life. And it was the first time that I really like paid attention and was listening to what was being said. And God did a lot in my life through that. And then when I was a sophomore in high school, going into my junior year, we went to a summer camp. And this is to me, this is a God story because I wasn't looking to go into ministry. In fact, the camp speaker was so boring. I didn't listen to anything he said. I literally every night would put my hands like this, and I would sleep through his sermon, and like kind of pretend like I'm praying so people don't know I'm sleeping. And the last night, I have no idea what his scripture was. I have no idea what his sermon was about. But the last night, I woke up and I heard him say, "If you feel like God's calling you to ministry, come down front." And I heard just clearly in my soul, this is what I want you to do with the rest of your life.
Wow.
And I said, no way, I do not want to do, I don't want to do that. But that little voice kept pursuing me. And even after the camp, for the next handful of months, when I would get alone with God and have my quiet time, I would just hear, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And so my junior year of high school, I had a chance to speak and preach to the youth group. Had no idea what I was doing. It probably was a horrible sermon, but I got alone with God and I said, "Okay, God, I'm about to speak to my friends, to my peers, and if this fails, then I know I didn't hear from you. But if they listen and you speak through this, then I know that voice I heard was from you." And I spoke, and I'm sure it was a horrible sermon, but they listened, and I kept their attention, and God seemed to use it. And so then from that point on, it was no turning back. It was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so
Awesome.
I jumped in and jumped in, started in ministry as an intern at 18 years old, and have been in ministry ever since.
Wow. So when did you said 11 years ago is when Next Level Church, now is this your church? Did you birth this church? Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. This was also just one of those kind of. I wasn't looking to plant a church. I was a youth pastor and was really happy with that, and thought I was, would be a youth pastor for my whole life.
Right.
And really, God started just pushing me out of my comfort zone, and He just made it abundantly clear that this is what you're supposed to do with your life. And so there was a whole bunch of really long story, but it was about 2 years of just kind of going back and forth, and finally just got confirmed. And just knew, okay, this is what I need to do. And I'm going to be disobedient if I don't, pull the trigger and jump out. And so we started the church. And my wife and I, we sold our house because that was the only debt that we had. And we didn't know if the church fails, we don't want to fail because of money. And so we moved in with my parents. And at the time we had 1-year-old twins, and moved in with them, planted the church, and God blessed it. And the church was able to start paying me pretty quickly into that. And so that was 11 years ago.
Wow, beautiful, 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 beautiful. So, and then in the meantime now, you've been writing books.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when did you write your first book?
Yeah, I wrote my first book the first year that the church was in existence.
Okay.
And so it's going on 11 years, almost 12 years old. And then so this new one that came out in April was my fourth. So in about 11-year span, I've written 4.
So out of your experience as a pastor, because there are ups and downs and all
Yeah.
of that. So what are some of the, can you tell me some of the victories that you've had, things that have, changed you even as a
Yeah.
person?
Yeah. So I mean, there's been a lot. God's been incredibly faithful. One of those was when I first started the church. I started it off of a blog post. I used to blog back in the day, and I just did a post that said, "Hey, if you feel like God might be calling you to help plant a church, we're having this interest meeting." And we had planned for about 15, 20 people. We had 20 chairs, thinking that, that would be a great number if we could get 20. And I did the blog post on Tuesday. By Thursday of that week, we had over 90 people had RSVP'd for
Wow,
this
that's
interest meeting.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And I only did one blog post. So it wasn't like a lot of advertising, a lot of, anything. It just was that one post. And so I had to quickly find another church I had to find a place to meet, because we were going to meet in a house, and a house can't hold 90 some people.
No.
So I had gone to a church planning meeting at this church called Reservoir Community Church. And I didn't meet the pastor. I just went to their building. And so I cold called the church, and I said, "Hey, you don't know me, but I went to this church planning meeting. Your church was great. I've got 90 some people coming in 2 days to this interest meeting. Is there any way we could meet at your church?" And the pastor was so kingdom minded, so kind. He said, "Yeah, sure, of course you can come and meet here." And so we had our interest meeting, and my plan going into it was to build a core team of 50 people in a year. And at that first night of that interest meeting, we got over 50 people who said they'd help us plant the church. And so
Wow,
we
beautiful.
we went from saying, this is going to be a year, to saying, okay, like let's do it now. And Easter was 7 weeks away. And so we decided to pull the trigger and plant the church 7 weeks from that interest meeting. But from there, we had to find a place to meet on a regular basis. And there was a church in our area called Mosaic that shared its church building with other churches. And so they had 9 different churches that met in one building.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Now, the amazing thing is it was incredibly cheap, and I had no money, so that was good. And it came with everything you need for the church. It had kids equipment, it had chairs, it had projectors, sound,
What a
all that
blessing.
stuff that we couldn't afford. It came with the building. The only issue is, because there were 9 churches there, the only time they had free was 6 p.m. on Sunday nights. And that's a really hard time to plan a church.
Sure.
And it's hard to plan a church at 6 p.m. on Sunday night in someone else's building. So like our name's not on the church building on the outside, so people can't drive by and see it. But God was still faithful, and we had over 100 people come that first year. And though about 6 months into that first year, we had some families who stepped away from the church, and they said, "We just can't hang with being a Sunday night church." And that was tough for me to hear, because I can't change that. There's nothing I can do. We have no money. We're still, just baby church. And so I got alone with God, and I was on my knees, and I just said, "God, like, I need your help. Like I'm trying to reach people, and I need people to reach people. Like, tell me what to do." And I felt just clearly in my soul, and I don't have a ton of stories like this, but I just clearly felt in my soul that I heard this whisper that said, "You need to pray for a free church building." And I dismissed that, because I was like, that's not even saying I'm going to give you a free church building. That's just, you need to pray about this. And so I was like, I don't know what that thought was. That's, that's ridiculous. But I kept, over the next couple months, I would get alone with God. I'd read my Bible and start praying, and I would just hear that whisper again, you need to pray for a free church building. So I went before our church and I said, hey, I am not telling you that we're going to get a free church building, but I just know that if I don't lead us to pray for this, I'm going to be disobedient to God. And so we need to be praying for this. And so we started praying, and in March of 2012, I got a text from the pastor at the church where we had our first interest meeting at. And he texted me and said, how would you like a free church building on 8 acres of land? And and so I was blown away, and I called him immediately. I said, this is not something that you text someone, like, what is going on? And he said, his church, they were closing the doors on his church, but he loved the vision that he heard at our vision meeting. And he loved, what God was doing in our church, and he felt like God told him to give us his building. And so we got a building on 8 acres of land, and everything in it. And so those are a couple of the cool stories.
That's a miracle. You knew this was God 100%,
Yeah, for sure.
It's how God shows up sometimes.
That's right.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. So tell us about your book. I think it's such a timely book because we do live in a society of offense. I mean, around every corner. And I think for believers and non-believers alike, it's the main thing that just destroys families. It destroys, work environments, offense. It's just a very destructive thing. So just share a little bit. Well, share a lot about your book.
Yeah.
Be able to, let people know so they can go out and buy it.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. The book for me started in 2020. The pandemic hits and the world shuts down. And I feel like at that time, people had more time on their hands. So they spent more time watching political news channels or listening to political podcasts or just watching political television.
Right.
And, people have always been political, but I felt like before this moment, there, at least in church circles, we were cordial to each other. We may not agree with politics, but there wasn't quite this divisiveness that I started to feel in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And in August of 2020, we make the decision to come back and start holding services. And immediately things were just different. We just found that we were offending people with almost everything that we were doing. Some people were offended we came back, and they were like, you shouldn't be coming back in person. Some people were offended that we came back too slow. They thought we should have been open a long time ago. Some people, we were trying to follow the CDC guidelines. We never done church in a pandemic. We didn't know what to do. And so we're trying to follow the guidelines best we can. And so they required you to wear masks. So we asked everyone to wear a mask. Well, we had people leave the church and go to other churches that didn't require you to wear a mask. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I mean, I've done some of your funerals for your family. I've done some of your weddings. Like, we've done life together. Why is this mask thing so divisive? Like, why are people leaving a church or just getting so worked up about that? And it just continued from there. It just felt like if we said something that didn't fit exactly with the script of someone's political party, they immediately got offended. They didn't ask questions. They didn't say, hey, what did you mean by that? They just jumped and would start calling names or send an email or just leave the church.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, okay, this is just, I feel like it's out of hand, because as Christians, we can disagree. And there are times when maybe, someone is wrong and you need to talk to them, but do it in a way that they're going to listen, or do it in love. Yeah.
Yes.
And it just felt like there was a lot of that missing. And I also spend a lot of time online,
mm-hmm.
and I'm very active on social media. And there were multiple Christians in my life who walked away from the church. And the reason that, and not our church, but they just walked away from church in general. And the reason they walked away is because the way that Christians treated one another online. And they just said, if that's what Christians are about, I'm okay with God. I just I can't associate with those people.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of that together, I just was like, okay, someone has to do something. And I didn't know of a lot of other resources out there that were challenging Christians to do something positive with their offense. And so I said, all right, I'm going to set out and try to write something to inspire them and encourage them. When you get offended, here's a strategy. Here's something you can do to, not ruin your testimony and maybe even win the other person over.
There you go. There you go. Awesome. So that's how your book got birthed.
That's it.
Time. Yeah. There was a lot of divisiveness, for sure, during that time. And I think as believers, we need to come together with what's going on right now in the world, not just our country, but around the world. We need to come together with the mind of Christ on, what's going on in our society, because it's out of control, as you.
Yeah.
But so how long has your book been out?
Yeah, it came out in April, so just a handful of months ago.
Okay.
So it's still came out this year, and it's been doing really well.
Good. Can you give us a little bit out of it? Can you read maybe a little bit out of it, just to give people just a taste of what they're going to be reading?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm not sure that you can officially get rid of all offense. I just don't know. I think we're too broken as human beings.
Yes.
So I'm not gonna. I hope you'll get offended less after you read this book, but I'm not sure that anyone can just get rid of it completely. So what I want to do is provide a strategy. Okay, the next time you get offended, here's something you can do to help you think through how to win the other person over. Because here's what typically happens: a person gets offended, they get angry, then they go online and they rant, and that rant doesn't change anyone's mind. The people that already agree with them will pile on and say, yeah, you're exactly right. The people that disagree will say, why are you being such a jerk? And then they fight in the comments, and no one's won over.
That's
But
right.
what if we could win over what if we have something really that is offensive and we could win the other side over? What would that look like? And I try to give lots of practical examples of Christians who have done just that, who have made decisions to say, okay, I'm going to put the relationship first. I'm going to put this person over my offense. And we still may talk about the offense. We're not going to bury it or pretend it didn't happen, but I'm going to show them the love of Christ over blasting them or being offended and calling them out.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I think that's so important, because offenses destroy lives.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Think of families that are split up, and I'm not just talking about marriages, but brothers and sisters, just over something maybe even not that big, and they don't talk to each other for months and years over something that could be dealt with and cleared up, in other words.
Yeah,
because we know the Bible says that we're not to be offensive, to follow peace as much as possible. It's not always possible, that.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a book that I think every Christian needs.
Yeah.
Every Christian needs out there. So where can we where can they you said it's on Amazon?
Anywhere where they can order books, any site that they prefer.
So on all of them. Okay.
Yeah, they should be able to get it. But I have a website, robshep.com.
Okay.
And all this information is on there. And I also have, if anyone is interested, the first thing you'll see is a little banner for a mailing list. And I do a weekly mail out where I just email, a thought on God, just something inspirational. And so if anyone is interested in that, they're feel free to sign up for that. It's just robshep.com. But all my information about books and speaking and all that stuff is on that website as well.
So what I'm going to do when we get off this interview, if you will email me all of that information.
Yeah.
And then I'll put that on my website as well.
Great.
And of course, and then they can come to my website as well, or the radio website, and find you there as well. So,
sounds good.
And that for those who are listening, if you don't know our website, because most of the time it's just music, you don't get to hear this very often, but it's www.hkrshineon.com. That's hkrshineon.com. And we will have Rob's information on there. But so let's kind of veer off and talk about your dad for a minute.
Yeah.
I think that would be interesting for people to know about. So your dad is an actor, same as Robert Shepard. You out there may have heard of him. Can you tell us a little bit about your dad?
Yeah. Yeah. He's incredibly inspirational. He had a dream from pretty young to be an actor. He'd moved out to Hollywood. He visited Hollywood one time, and he was on the original dating game. He was one of
Okay.
the bachelors, and he actually won and got picked. And that's not how he met my mom. Everyone always asks that. The date didn't work out. But then he went to college and then moved back to he got married and moved back to California. And they had my sister, and pretty soon afterwards my mom had a brain aneurysm.
Oh,
And so she survived and things went well, but they have all these bills piling up, and he's a struggling actor. And so he gets in the military to help with insurance and to pay the bills. And he does this whole military thing for until he retires, and never let go of the dream. And so once he officially retires, he started pursuing acting. And for living in Yorktown, Virginia, he has had an amazing career. I think
wow.
if he lived in New York or LA, he would probably have an even bigger career. But he has done. People may have seen him on. He's done a Geico commercial. He was in a Hardee's commercial. He was the face of Hearing Assist, which was a hearing aid commercial, and the commercial was pretty popular. The son would say, "I love you, Dad," and my dad would say, "What?" And he would say, "I love you," and my dad would say, "I know, I just wanted you to say it again." And his face was all over Target and Walmart. He was the official face of Hearing Assist. He played Lincoln's doctor in Steven Spielberg's Lincoln movie. So you get to see him at the end of that. He's worked with Steve Carell and Evan Almighty. He is, I can't even keep up with all the things
With
he's
everything
done.
he's done.
Yeah, but
We have about 5 minutes left and then it's
yeah,
end here, but that's pretty awesome,
yeah,
So that had to have made you very proud of your dad's accomplishments, right? I mean,
definitely, and very inspirational that he's still he's in his 70s and he's still
yeah,
pursuing his dream. So it's very
amazing.
cool. Yeah,
It just doesn't end, does it?
yeah,
Well, I just wanted to thank you for letting me do this interview with you. And like I say, your information will be on our website, and this will be, and I will let you know when it's going to be on the radio.
great.
Like for you to tune in and maybe, let your church know as well, and they can tell other people. And then it will be on His Kingdom Radio YouTube channel as well. So I'll send you that once I get it uploaded and everything so you can see it.
Great.
Really has been a pleasure, and I'm so glad I got an opportunity finally to meet with you on here and just hear a little bit about your life. It's been pretty awesome how God has really directed your steps, in an amazing way. So
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
I always like to end with a prayer. Father, I do thank you for this time that we could come together with Rob today. And Lord, I just ask that you continue to bless his efforts. We thank you for the work that he's done with the books that he has written, the church that has, just blossomed. And I know that just from talking with him, he has been effectual in the kingdom of God. And so we thank you for his life. And we thank you again for this time that we could come together on His Kingdom Radio in Jesus' name. And Rob, do you
Amen.
have any last thoughts?
Yeah, I greatly appreciate you having me on. I really do believe that we're better together. And
Yes.
so I think I will definitely share your YouTube page. And I'm honored to anytime I get a chance to talk about God and what he's doing, I'm honored. So thank you very much for having me on.
Well, thank you, and God bless you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Bye for now.